Greetings everyone, this is Vakar Korvi and today we are going to discuss Pashtun Tahaffuz movement. Is there some nationalist movement uh, almost bordering on ethno-fascism, or there are some genuine issues where they are trying to project the case of Pashtuns in Pakistan and even Afghanistan. I feel that there is a need for a serious discourse, and instead of stereotyping, we should go through the entire gambit of Afghanistan and Pakistan history, geography, superpower interventions, and psychosocial trends within both countries. And then we'll focus on the Pashtun population itself, which is a very, very proud community which is very much part of Pakistan. And they have done a tremendous job, right from Pakistan's movement up to Kashmir freedom struggle. There was a major role played by Pashtuns and the tribals. And then, of course, is development of Pakistan as a very strong state. And they have also politically produced uh, tall leaders, military leaders, scientists, engineers, businessmen. And if you look at even Pashtun diaspora living Middle East, Europe or North America, or wherever, in Australia, there are tons of stories of their success, their bravery, their traditions. So it means that we have to look at the entire gambit and then try to decipher the Pashtun Tahaffuz movement and whether there is anything substantial within its narrative. I feel that there has been a sensationalism, which is a product of existing fault lines, and these have been blown up in the post-truth era, and this is a universal phenomena. Even if you look at US elections, you see these fault lines and the way post-truth has shaped the narratives and polarized the entire society. It was never imaginable. Look at India. Look at even Afghanistan and larger Europe. So one, it is a universal phenomena. There is awareness, especially youth is engaged, and they are trying to fish through an ocean of information, and that's very easy to bewilder the masses and create social unrest. But there are definitely genuine concerns related to Afghanistan and Pakistan border, which has seen a series of wars, not in past 4 decades, but past 300 years, and I'll try to highlight why that impacts psychosocial environment within the region. There is also a battle of haves and have-nots, uneven distribution of wealth, and it affects again entire region. Within Pakistan, Afghanistan, you find the elite taking a major chunk of resources, and then of course there are simmering currents by the have-nots. There's also, I think, a pronounced factor which is of exogenous shocks, because especially Afghanistan, and if you combine Pakistan-Afghanistan border, then Pakistan also has suffered tremendously because of exogenous shocks. And if you look at the definition, these are external events that affect a system, but they are not generated by the system itself. So most probably they are not internal but externally driven. And these could be calamities, unpredictable events. Even technology's proliferation can become an exogenous shock. Sudden changes in government, it means political instability, and then of course geopolitical events or major powers intervention. And I'll go through what happened to Afghan soil in past 300 years. So it is very, very surprising that how people have borne the brunt of that and how it has shaped the entire landscape of AFPAC region. Even if you look at geopolitical realities of Afghanistan and Pakistan, at times people just miss it. They stereotype that these countries have been taking sides, and mainly it was always guided by major powers, and there is lack of policy. On the ground, situation is very different. If you look at Pakistan and then combine Afghanistan and just look at the map and the neighborhood, these two countries are surrounded by giants with every definition of let's say larger states. You have Russia or the Soviet Union in the past in the north. In the northeast, we have China bordering again both Pakistan and Afghanistan. And then we have India, an emerging power, a very big country demographically, the largest country in the world, a growing economy. And of course, Middle East, Iran, which is itself, a very large country with the civilizational strength, and it's also seen its part of instability because of its interplay in the region, especially in the Middle East. And then, of course, is the North Arabian Sea, which again is not a country, but it has superpower presence, whether it be the American fleets or now the Chinese or India exerting with more than now 2 aircraft carriers. So it means that this area will remain under external pressures. Now, if you look at the superpower intervention in last 4 decades, so it means the exogenous shock was not temporary, but it had lasting impact. So we had Soviets occupying Afghanistan for almost 8 years, bringing in their governments, and I'll run through how regime change took place in Afghanistan and why it remained destabilized. This was followed by an unstable period of Taliban 1, and again we had another superpower which came and occupied it for almost 2 decades with 46 allies, NATO, and their hostile agencies trying to actually pursue their own agenda but destabilizing the whole region. There's also a factor of Afghan immigration outside Afghanistan. We have seen almost 5 million Afghans being hosted by Pakistan for last 4 decades. So this is a record. Now there are a lot of countries in Europe which have less than 5 million population. Iran boasts that they have now 6 million Afghans. So it means that bulk of Afghan population is actually refugees staying outside and they don't want to go back. So almost 10 million plus Afghans are located in Iran and Pakistan. And then there is the Afghan diaspora which has moved to West and North America and all parts of the world. And then we have seen a violent regime change in Afghanistan taking place in the last 40 years. I can count 7 major changes, but then if you look at how their rulers were overthrown, it runs into dozens. Then of course we had the hostile powers and intelligence agencies playing. India also got a space. Every time there was instability, it did create a space for itself, and it tried to create another front against Pakistan as per the Chankia's strategy that enemy of my enemy is my friend, and that's how they have, I think, and they continue to do it. Now we come to last 300 years, and with patience I think it is important that we understand that how last 300 years have shaped Afghanistan and Afghanistan-Pakistan region. There have been 60 major wars in past 300 years in Afghanistan, either because of internal fighting or let's say wars with neighbors or powers. And so it means that every 5th year there was some major war or some rebellion taking place within Afghanistan, and you can imagine the kind of suffering that people had. Generations of people have suffered. People call Afghanistan as the graveyard of empires, but unfortunately it is also graveyard of Afghan people, and I think that must be seen from people who study history. So we start with the 18th century, early part of it, and I've drawn this data from the net, and you can also Google it and just imagine the kind of instability Afghanistan has seen. From 1722 to 1730, there was series of war between Safavid dynasty in Iran and the Hotak dynasty, because Afghanistan didn't exist as a country then. Of course, there were dynasties, and there was somebody was controlling Herat, somebody was controlling central Afghanistan. Let's say Hotak were controlling bulk of Afghanistan at that time, or this area. So we have almost 8 to 9 years of war. Then we have the Sadozais of Herat fighting with Safavids of Iran, and this goes up to 1730. So there were 2 parallel wars going on. Then we have rise of Duranis and their clash with the Mughal Empire, although Mughal Empire was receding at that time. So we find that it continued up to almost 1818. And in the another important war in earlier part of 19th century was the Sikh-Afghan war, because Sikhs had established an empire. Uh, if you look at the map from, let's say, current eastern Punjab of India and north Pakistan, let's say Punjab and uh, KP, and then it went right up to Kabul. So there was a huge war from 1818 to 1837, and it was basically a seesaw of wars. Then came the British. They started establishing their rule in India, and we have a series of wars starting from 1840 to 1880, and they were famous, British Afghan wars 1, 2, and 3, and then of course there was treaties somewhere in earlier part of 20th century between the British and the Afghan ruler or the Amir of Afghanistan. Then there are series of rebellions. You have Hazaras rebellion, and I'll just throw some light on the demographics of Hazara. Who are these people controlling the Hazara Jat in the central Afghanistan? The Khos rebellion, Ali Zaid rebellion, then Sakavitz rebellion, Basmachi revolt, Pansheri's revolution, and then we have the famous Saur revolution, which overthrew Sardar Daoud's government, and we then had the socialist parties like the Khalq, followed by the Pacham party, and this was supported by the Soviet Union. Uh, Going back to time of King Zahir Shah and onwards, I'll just run through how many governments were changed, how they were changed, and what was the impact on Afghanistan. So by that time, Afghanistan had taken a shape, I would say, especially after the treaty with the British, which was recognized by the Soviet Union and the British Empire. King Zahir Shah was deposed in 1973, coup d'etat led by his own cousin, Sardar Daud Khan, and he tried also to develop good relations with Pakistan. So this was Bhutto's time. Daud Khan basically departed from the tradition and did not proclaim himself as Shah, and then basically declared Republic of Afghanistan. So then we see, Presidium or Presidents of Afghanistan coming. Unfortunately, we had a revolution by the People's Democratic Party, which is known as the Saur Revolution. In 1978, an entire family of Sardar Daud was assassinated, unfortunately, including himself. And we find Nur Muhammad Tarakai, which comes to power in 1978. Assassinated in 1979, one of the Khalq, I would say, factions led by Hafizullah Amin. Hafizullah Amin rules for 104 days, almost 4 months, and was assassinated by Soviet sponsorship by the Pacham party. So Khalq party then gave way to Pacham party. Both were basically sponsored by the Soviets. And we find Babrak Kamal, who brings in some stability for 6 years, and then he is violently removed in 1986, and that's the time the Soviets started serious withdrawal from Afghanistan across the Amur River. This is followed by Dr. Najibullah, and he basically was the head of Khidmat-e-Talat-e-Dawlati, or the Khad, and it was very infamous. I remember in late 70s and early 80s, and we remember a Thoda group operating in Rawalpindi, and the first time terrorism started in Pakistan was, I think, during that period, late 70s and early 80s. So you had bomb blasts taking place, especially in KP or NWFP at that time, and Pindi. Dr. Najibullah took over, and in 1992 we had the Soviet collapse had started, Soviet Union. So he was left with no support, and then we find rise of Taliban, and he was unfortunately hanged by them after torture in 1996. So you can just look at last 40 years, violent regime change taking place. So this follows, within that we had Sabqatullah Mujaddidi becoming the president for 66 days only, followed by Ustad Burhanuddin Rabbani in 1992, and then of course there is the capture of Kabul by Taliban in 1996. 27 September. So technically Ustad Burhanuddin Rabbani remained the Afghan president till the US came in. So maybe you can say that he was supported by the Northern Alliance. So he continued to serve as president in areas controlled by the Northern Alliance during 1996 to 2001 civil war. Basically, this is the time Taliban one rule took place. And then we have uh, recapture of Kabul on 13 November 2001, and then we have a superpower intervention. Between 1996 and 2001, the Islamic State, Islamic Emirate remained the internationally recognized government despite only controlling about 10% of the Afghan territory, and there were few countries, including Pakistan, who recognized it, and there were some Gulf countries. And unfortunately, today, Taliban has just forgotten it. So this is followed by the second superpower intervention in 4 decades. And US comes in, brings in Hamid Karzai, and you have a period of actually American rule in Afghanistan for almost 2 decades. So practically, Pakistan, which was already surrounded by giants, now had neighborhood with 2 superpowers. In the late 70s and mid 80s, it was Soviet Union, and from 2002 to 2021, it was the mighty US. So practically, we were neighbors. And just imagine what was going on in Afghanistan and what were the options available to Pakistan. They were not invited, neither Soviet Union nor US by Pakistan. It was because of international reason, terrorism and whatever. Then we have Hamid Karzai from 2002 in different capacities, later on also becoming a president up to 2014. And we also find a new elite being created in Afghanistan of bureaucracy, of judiciary, of businesses, of professors, even women, leading in some of the areas. They're becoming part of the parliament, ministries. And you find a very, very different Afghanistan. Of course, US was spending money, and the total expenditure, I think during US occupation, including the economic aid, running of the Afghan state and the military, runs into almost $1 trillion. I don't know how much was spent on Afghan government, but they were able to raise entire army, defense forces, and all that. And then we have Dr. Ashraf Ghani taking over from 2014 till the exit of US forces in 2021, and now you have Taliban too. So if you look at, I think, the entire spectrum of history, which most of the people, when they are discussing and criticizing Pakistan's foreign policy, they just forget it, that what kind of neighbor we have. Unfortunately, I say no fault of Afghan people, but because of either infighting or wars with the neighbors or superpower intervention, not really intervention but occupation. So Taliban take over after Doha deal. What was discussed, things are now coming out. US left about $7 billion of arsenal, small arms, weapon systems, and now Taliban are basically repairing. We have seen some of their helicopters and aircrafts flying there, tanks, then of course infantry fighting vehicles and laser guided rockets, and you have night vision devices and all that, including the military gear. And now we have an oppressive regime, I would say, unfortunately, despite that there was a hope after Doha Accord and the promises made, which not only oppresses the women, which is almost 20 million, their size. They're locked in their homes. The girls cannot go to schools beyond, let's say, middle. And now there is, also suppression on information. If you look at the latest decree by the Supreme Leader, promulgated by the Ministry of Vice and Virtue, in Afghanistan, at least 3 promises: you cannot show any living being. And I at times, discuss it on X and highlight it to Afghan, handlers operating on X or Twitter, that basically they are doing something illegal because you can't show any living thing. So why are they showing, soldiers and all that? Now we come to the Pashtun Tahaffuz movement's sub-nationalism. I say that it's basically a cuckoo's land. Mainly, cuckoo land is a place of fantasy, dreams, or impractical ideas where everything seems perfect. Because you just disregard what has happened in the history. You just disregard the occupation of superpowers in Afghanistan and what happened to AFPAC. You disregard millions of Afghan who had to leave their homeland and they don't want to go back to Afghanistan. Now we come to brass tacks, dissection of the idea of Larobar Afghanistan, Larobar Yo Afghanistan, whatever they call it. And I'll also try to then highlight what does it mean and actually how we should apply it in Pakistan. The big question is why 5 million Afghans in Pakistan and almost 6 million in Iran don't want to go back to Afghanistan. So first question is, and most of them are Pashtuns, in case Laro Bar Yo Afghan is their slogan, and they talk of Pashtun sub-nationalism and maybe an independent Pashtunistan, some of their, let's say, activists. Why don't they convince, their Afghan, the Pashtun brothers and sisters to go back? So it means that the environment in Afghanistan is not conducive. Now, if PTM considers sub-nationalism as the panacea for all ills of the state, why not apply it in Afghanistan? And I think some debate has started taking place. We have seen some of the Tajik and Uzbek social media activists on X who have rejected this idea of Laro Bar Yo Afghan because the Pashtun in Afghanistan, I'll go into the demographics of Afghanistan, they are just 18 million. And if you look at Pakistan, they are 30 million. So it means that actually the bigger brother is this side. And logically, they should join this side. Why not to have a confederation with Pakistan? Instead of, I'll discuss about the benefits that they can get. There are a few figures like city of Karachi, the financial capital of Pakistan, is home to the world's largest urban community of Pashtuns. And there are brothers, whether they are from KP or elsewhere, and there are intermarriages. You actually find Pashtuns even in Islamabad. And it is again one of the largest, let's say, configuration of this ethnicity. But they are definitely Pakistanis. So the Pashtun population in Karachi is larger than Kabul and Peshawar. So this is again, I think, point to be noted. Now we come to other communities or ethnicities in Afghanistan, which normally are missed. When we look at Afghanistan's neighbors, so we have Pakistan in its east and southeast. You have towards the north Tajikistan, and then we have Uzbekistan, and then of course we have Turkmenistan, and on the western side is Iran. Now, one of the large communities is basically Tajiks. They are 15 million. So if Pashtuns are 18 million, so Tajiks I think are the second largest, and they are very, very intelligent people. And some of the Tajik leaders are well known in the Afghan history, and they have contributed a lot. So they basically, are located in northeast, west, and central regions of Afghanistan. They are so predominant in four largest cities of Afghanistan, that is Kabul, Mazar-e-Sharif, Herat, and Ghazni. So it means that they are quite urbanized. Then we have Hazaras, basically a Mongolite Muslim race or Muslim people, 6 million. Again, a very large number. And they are almost in the central Afghanistan, the Hazara Jat. You can go through the map, mainly in Bamiyan, Daikundi, larger parts of Ghor, Ghazni, Uruzgan, Parwan, and Maidan Vardak. So this is where we have. Then are the Uzbeks, 2 million, mostly in Mamna, Mazar-e-Sharif, Shibargan, and Kunduz. So border touching with Uzbekistan. So in case all the ethnic communities in Afghanistan start with Larobar Uzbek or Larobar Yo Tajik, what will happen to Afghanistan itself? So it means it's going to get fractured. So that's why it's very important that Afghanistan considers itself to be a post-Westphalian state, a nation state. It better look at the ethnic communities, and the way Taliban have oppressed them, it's known, especially against the Hazaras. I feel that Larobar Yo Afghan is a trick which is not one accepted by communities in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Lar means basically there, or Afghanistan, and Bar, here is Pakistan, Yo is one. And now probably they're trying to change it to, Laro Bar Yo Pashtun, but I think this is a delayed thought. Initially it was. Somehow the, PTM is trying to project that all Afghans are Pashtuns, which is not the case. Why Afghan Pashtuns should not or should logically join Pakistan. One, Afghanistan is landlocked, so they get a free access to ports of Karachi and Gwadar, so they get linked with the entire world and international community. Why to then depend on Afghan transit rate, become part of Pakistan? And as I mentioned, Pashtun in Pakistan are about 18% of the population, or 30 million. We have Iran building a wall, billions of dollars on the Afghan border. Why they are doing it? So it means that they feel that there is instability which flows from Afghanistan. Now come to the economics. The GDP of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is almost $38 billion, or 10% of Pakistan. But the new figures which were quoted by Pakistan's finance minister are very interesting, because it feels that there's a lot of potential, and Pakistan should actually be having a GDP of $700 billion. So if that be the case, KP's GDP should be $50 billion. GDP of Afghanistan is between $21 to $22 billion. So just imagine. And I always say that it is one third of GDP of Faisalabad. Faisalabad is about $78 billion of GDP. So just look at PTM's narrative. What are they trying to do, and why they are bluffing the Pashtun brothers? Within Afghanistan today, the state is that 1 in 4 Afghans do not know where their next meal will come from. Now, this is as per UN World Food Program report. 13 million people are affected. And if you know that 25% of grain for Afghanistan, whether it is wheat, rice, pulses, and a lot of food stuff goes from Pakistan. So there is a dependence, and Pakistan has never, tried to basically use it as a tool of policy. There are 3.2 million children under 5 years and 8,40,000 pregnant and lactating women who are now suffering from acute malnutrition in Afghanistan, and most of them are locked. So just imagine the treatment. This is a report by UN Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. So I feel that we need an informed debate instead of stereotyping. What were the options available with Pakistan to deal with the perpetually destabilized Afghanistan? At times people say that Pakistan doesn't have a long-term foreign policy. But how can you have a policy when you have a regime change, violent regime change taking place almost every 4 or 5 years? Whom do you deal with it? Even now Taliban is facing revolt in almost 14 to 17 provinces. This was quoted by Ahmad Masood in one of his interviews in US. And they are again, ISIS is rising, and Taliban is finding it very, very difficult to control the north and the northeast. So I feel Pakistan cannot actually have a long-term policy. We have to deal with the government in Kabul, and that is very, very unfortunate. We also have Chinese interests. Another emerging superpower is now interested for development of Afghanistan, massive development. But their infrastructure projects in Pakistan are being targeted by the TTP or BLA operating from Kabul. There are reports, authenticated reports, not only by Sarah Adams, who is a top CIA target analyst. She mentioned that almost $87 million from Swiss banks is flown by air to Kabul. This is handed over to Taliban. What do they do with it? This is being done by the US. And even the SIGAR's report, the Special Inspector General on Afghanistan, that $17.5 billion have already been given to Taliban government in past 3 years since 2021. And add $7 billion of arsenal. I don't know what kind of human rights and women rights are we talking about. So it's quite, I think, hypocritical. I feel that Pakistan should be looking at all the major tools, diplomatic, military, social, information and economic, to apply against Taliban to motivate them mainly. Pakistan has, I think, started with an aggressive diplomatic offensive to basically motivate the Taliban that this arrangement cannot work. In the sidelines of UNGA in end September, the quadrilateral group, which basically comprises of Pakistan, Iran, China and Russia, very clearly told Afghan delegates that they have to shut down the terrorist factories, including, whether it is TTP, BLA, or those operating against Iran, Russia, or China. And then we had Moscow format declaration coming on 4th October. Again, more countries of Central Asia, even India, joined hands to tell Mr. Muttaki that they have to shut down these terrorist factories because this was destabilizing the entire region. So this is one. On the military side, Pakistan is doing its part this side of Pak-Afghan border. By fighting terrorism, we have seen gallant soldiers and officers laying down their lives to defend Pakistan against this scourge of terror of the Kharjites. They have been declared as Kharjites. Socially, we have to engage with people of Afghanistan, including those on the bordering areas wherever PTM is trying to build up this false narrative that these are the facts. These are the facts, and Pakistan has to move ahead. And this is for the benefit of people of Afghanistan. We have to support the Afghan women. We have to support the liberal voices in the Afghan diaspora. On the information domain, it should be through social media, mainstream media, and mainly it is to motivate the Taliban that in case they want to live in international community with honor, take advantage of the connectivity. They were not invited to the SCO summit because all of the members felt that this is not a recognized government. But in case they want, and Pakistan is the one who has been pleading to the international community to recognize, they have to start behaving. So it means that in the informational domain, Pakistan is succeeding. Same is true for mainstream media, print, electronic, and social media. On the economic front, there could be a lot of incentives. Already Pakistan has incentivized Afghanistan through Afghan transit trade, through allowing 300,000 Afghans to come to Pakistan every month legally for health reasons, for education, for businesses. And this should be, Pakistan cannot abandon Afghanistan. It's a matter of, almost 43 million Afghan people, including more than 20 million Afghan women. And then we need to now start raising the issue of Larobar Yo Uzbek, Larobar Yo Tajik, and Larobar Yo Hazara. Why not? So let PTM, let's say discuss it and feel the heat that in case this is the way they want to operate, then Afghanistan is going to suffer. Let the demographics, economy, and geography dictate what could be the future of Pashtuns in Afghanistan. Logically, Pashtun in Afghanistan will be very happy for a confederation with Pakistan, and Pakistan should now start talking about it. Thank you very much.